Hello, everyone. Welcome to React Roundup, the podcast where we keep you updated on all things React related. This show is sponsored by
Yeah,
Raygun and produced by Top End Devs and Unvoid. Top End Devs is where we create top end devs who get top end pay and recognition while working on interesting problems and making meaningful community contributions. And Unvoid offers remote design and software development services on a task basis, so clients only pay when tasks are delivered and approved. In today's episode, we will talk about Jotai, which is a library that exposes primitive and flexible state management for React. My name is Lucas Paganini, your host in the podcast. Joining me in today's episode is Chris Fruin,
Hello, everyone.
Peter Osa,
Hi everyone.
and our special guest, which is a core member of the Jotai team, Mohammad Bagher Abiyat. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
Yeah, that was close. That was close. So, hello everyone. Happy to be here. I'm really thankful for the opportunity. It's my first time doing a podcast, so take it easy on me if something went wrong.
No worries, no worries. Yeah, so Mohammed, why don't you just start with a quick pitch of what is Jotai and the use cases for it, and then we can take it from there.
Yeah, sure. So, Jotai is an atomic state management library, something similar to Recoil. I mean, Recoil was really on the top for a while, and everyone knew it for a while. So the idea is similar, but like one of the reasons I guess we started this, or at least Daesh started it, is that we wanted to avoid having keys in our state atoms. So that's kind of just was the start. But about Jotai, it's just a state management library that's pretty atomic and goes with the atomic state management way of doing things.
Gotcha. So if you were to give some examples of use cases where Jotai really shines, what would come to your mind?
Yeah. So for a while, here's the things. For a while, like the React community, when context was introduced, like everyone was saying that just migrate to context, just use context everywhere, just keep yourself with context and move away from Redux. At that point, everyone was happy, kind of, until we faced the issues. Where what were the issues? Well, context is a like you always put it at the top level of your program, and you just wrap your whole application around that. So when a state changes in your context, basically your whole application is going to be re-rendered. And what would you do at like some of the solutions were just use memo or use callback and stuff like that. So at that point, we also got back to state management libraries because we were like, yeah, state management libraries were right in some terms and for some use cases where we want to like specify the rendering for a specific component and not the whole application. Like, Jotai really shines here because it got one of the most optimized rendering across like all the state management libraries. It's pretty atomic and it relies on use state and use external storage or some API React. Like I just forgot the name. And what it do is that it would re-render your component on a component level and not your whole application. So if you have a if you have a component A, if you have a component B, and you just use the atom in component B, and the state changes for that atom, then only component B would be rendered, and you won't need any provider like context. Yeah, we offer a provider like context and some other libraries, but by default you won't need it. And for me, as a maintainer, even I've never used it like seriously, never used the provider. So first, you don't need the provider. Two, all of the renders and all of the state changes happen at a component level. So things are pretty optimized, and most of the times you would not use memo and use callback at that point because everything is optimized by default.
Gotcha. So correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm hearing is so a lot of the optimizations that React developers usually do manually, such as use memo, use callback, don't need to be written because the library already takes care of that. And on top of that, it also makes sure that the that React re-renders less. So it only re-renders the specific component that requires that specific atom and not the entire tree until it gets to that component. So it optimizes the rendering performance and it also reduces the boilerplate of the code base. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly. We won't like. First of all, just to give you a disclaimer. I'm a member, and my views don't represent the whole team and the whole implementation. Because to be honest, I got so many things wrong in the library too. So I might be wrong, like all of the podcasts. So sorry for that. But around your use memo and use callback point, yes, like for me as someone who used the library, it helped me avoid writing use memo. I use callback most of the times because state, if you do it properly, state changes won't happen like excessively. Everything happens on a component level, and if that component renders so many times, since it's a small component, since it's a small part of your application, it doesn't matter that much because it needs that state changes. So yeah, it avoids that boilerplate and also optimizes most of the things that you won't need to optimize yourself with use memo, use callback, and all of this stuff that you used to do at least with React context.
Gotcha. Interesting, interesting. So Chris, Peter, I wonder if by hearing this description, if you guys remember of any previous experience, previous project where you think this could have been useful, and what was your approach versus what you could have done with Jotai?
Okay, yeah, so yeah, I actually use Jotai, like, yeah, I think it's actually one of my go-to state management system. Yeah, I think after Redux also. Redux was just on. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I use Jotai for, like, one thing I actually love about Jotai is just it's kind of very simple, very simple, right? In the sense that the API is simple, right? And I kind of prefer using it for maybe micro front end systems that require, maybe, for example, you need to have like a form of shared state, right? You're having like maybe two applications, different applications, and then you want them to share one state, right? Doing maybe using other kind of big state management systems like Redux may be kind of quite difficult to, may just bring some complexity rather. So since Jota is kind of simple, it's API, and that I think it's very easy for you to just work with it and then kind of work with the idea of share state with it. Yeah, for the idea of use memo and yeah, like what Mohammed said, I don't know if I've actually like maybe used that for sort though, but I just kind of use Jota for more of a simplicity, right? And I really like the idea of Jotai, like as a state management library. Right? So, although I have a lot of questions, like I use that and I actually try to understand the underlying principle of Jotai, right? And one thing I know is that, yeah, Jotai uses work is similar to recoil, right? Now, usually when you want to kind of start your Jota app, right, like you want to maybe if install Jota and you want to kind of incorporate it into your application, right? What happens then now is that you have to pass in a provider class. That provider class now, I wanted to ask Mohammed, so is it something based on context? Because, for example, let's use Redux, for example, now. When you Redux, you do all your Redux setup and so on and so forth, right? And then you're going to have to like import a provider which kind of passes those state data. And so I wanted to ask, do you actually know what the provider dependency on that Jotai does? Like, does he work? Does he use context, or is it something abstracted or something different? Yeah, I think that's just like my first question.
Yeah. So If I'm getting the question correct, you mean that does Jotai use context under the hood? Do you mean that?
Yes, to pass the state data around the components.
Yeah. So exactly, yeah, it uses use context and it does it in an elegant way. So it doesn't feel like React context because you won't need it and like most of the times, and it works out of the box. But under the hood, yeah, for sharing the state, it needs to use context, but in a different way. So it doesn't change the state the same way context does it. It has some abstraction on top of that, which avoids doing so many state changes, and it doesn't use context for the same way we used to do. Like it doesn't use it just for sharing the state. It actually uses it for sharing the state, but it doesn't use it that much for changing the state itself. It uses it for like if you up that in, it uses it for like changing the scope or changing the initial value of like some atoms if you wanted to do that. But under the hood, to answer your question, yeah, it use context so it can share the state across the application.
Okay, yeah. Second question. I get the first. I get it. Yeah, I think that's a very good answer to it. So the second question I have is on Jota is I think I read an article. I don't know if it's a Daishi's article on how like I think relating how kind of it maps the kind of, let me just say, the state values, right? No, I think Jota calls his states like atoms, right? So let's fundamentally atoms. So he kind of says that like it kind of the atoms are kind of attached to the component tree of like, in a way, like for example, if you're kind of calling an atom your component, maybe you want to use it, right, in a
Yeah.
specific component, right? It was he, I think the article explains that it's not like as if it's kind of retrieving it from a kind of a global state, right? It's kind of getting like it's kind of attaching that state to the component tree of that component. That's to the, let me just put the tree, right? The react the just let me just put this way, that localizing the state value rather, when you maybe use like the atom in that component. I don't know, like I wanted like a better explanation on that. I don't know if you have an idea of how the atoms kind of like how the whole data flow is, right? How it kind of effectively stores the state, that kind of, yeah. I think that's the
Yeah,
part
yeah,
I'm having to. I don't know if you have an idea of it. Maybe it's something you can share to us and also the audience as well.
yeah. So it's a global state at the end, but the way can you hear me, guys?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a global state at the end, and the way I look at it is it's just a smart way of doing use state, but it's a use state that is global because at the end, Jotai, when you import the use atom hook and you use that hook, it basically under the hood it uses use state for your state. So that's why I said it as you said, it just attaches that atom to that component specifically, because under the hood it uses use state, or I don't know, the implementation might have changed. Now they might have used like user reducer, which is just like a more complex and like more flexible way of doing user state, but it's basically the same thing. Yeah, so under the hood, it uses those hooks so it can attach that state and brings that state from an external source and attaches it to your component using user reducer or user state. And the way it does it, like concurrent friendly, React concurrent friendly, is by using the hook I just mentioned previously. And the hook names I just forgot it, but is, as far as I remember, is it's use sync external storage or something like that, which is a hook for having global states, like states that their source is outside of React, being synced with the React tree and React rendering, and that's what Jota uses.
Yeah, all right. That's cool. Yeah. So I think that's all the questions for me. I really love Jota as a state manager. I'll actually encourage a lot of people to use it. Simplistic also. So yeah, Chris, do you have any question as regards Jota? Or because
Yeah, I was looking on the homepage for it here. So I'm mainly a Redux guy, if it's even
Oh
needed.
no.
Oh well,
Oh,
just because
just kidding, just kidding. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, just kidding. I just love Redux, and I started with Redux somehow, and I just love that library, to be honest.
yeah, exactly. Like I even went through the whole, uh, like the old school, the boilerplate everyone hated, where you had your separate actions and your separate reducers and all that. So and now
Yeah,
I know the whole uh, the Redux toolkit. But yeah, like
exactly.
the principle for Jotai seems it's like amazing because basically, at least for how I use Redux, is really all you need is like you want some sort of global state, right? Like if you
Mhm.
need local state for your components, use of course the built-in use state. But as soon as you want to pass state around to other components, that's where you would lean to any like state management. And yeah, so far like it looks really nice and just how simple like what Peter was saying, how simple it is to set up. So I guess the only kind of question I have would be more of like an architecture standpoint, because here, like of course on the example homepage you show it all. Like you could of course put it all in some one file with some simple components. But how would you recommend? I guess you could. Are you able to define kind of like a separate? I guess I'm coming from the Redux world where like you
Yeah,
define
it's
it in a
okay. It's
separate
okay.
file. But do you have any info on how you would tackle like organization using Jotai?
Yeah, yeah. That's an interesting question because I found my own taste of doing Jotai at homes. So yeah, I would explain that in a second. Well, first of all, just to give a shout out to Mark, the maintainer of Redux and the Redux toolkit. Like he just changed the way we do states, to be honest. And he was the only one that everyone was saying that Redux is dead, but that man just like kept all of the things with Redux going. So huge shout out to him. And around the architecture, well, first of all, we have like few kinds of atoms that if a user understand that properly, like it's just simple, but if they understand it at that point, will the like having an architecture based on your own state would be just easy. It would be like done out of the box. Well, the way I do it, first of all, we have just like normal atoms which you just give a value to them, like an initial or a default value to them, and we have uh, getter or readable atoms. I just forgot the name. That those atoms, they don't do anything themselves. The only thing they do is just they read an atom state from another atom. So they just
Hmm.
for consuming. You cannot set values to them. They just for reading the state. And we have another way of doing atoms, and which are just writable atoms. Writable atoms, you cannot set values to them. They don't hold values to, as far as I know and remember. But with them, they're like Zastand actions or Redux actions. With those writable atoms, your their job is to just change another atom's value, and you can specify your own way of, like, I don't know, setting the action or changing based on the value.
Okay. Okay. But then I guess since they all come from just your library, you could just define like you're quite flexible to define. You could even do just like a not to go in the kind of the giant file direction, but you could start off with just a single file and have some
Exactly, I just do
initial
that, to be
state.
honest, for all of my
Mhm.
projects.
Nice, yeah, yeah, I like it.
Yeah, so the reason I love just one file is that I document everything there and you can just search easily. But I separate them with comments that these are writable atoms, these are getter or readable atoms, and these are just normal atoms that have initial, I don't know, these initial states or values. That's the way I do it.
Cool. Yeah, yeah, very cool. I think, I mean, that's all I had. So I don't know, Lucas, if you wanted to keep steering the the talk.
In terms of actual real world usage of Jotai, I don't have other questions. I do want to know if there are any advanced things that people aren't very aware of, but that you, as someone that has worked in the library, you're like, people should know about this, but they don't.
Yeah. So, so the thing that I wanted to mention about Jotai is the thing that I want to mention about Daishi, like his work on optimizing rendering and creating perfect, to be honest, perfect state management libraries is just phenomenal, and he knows how to handle this thing. So I wanted to say the work that is going under the hood in Jotai to optimize re-renders is just magical, and the architecture under the hood is just is phenomenal. That I learned so much from that architecture, and the the effort that's been into this is so much. It's so much, and same not just with Jotai. It's the same goes for Zastan. The same goes for Valshu and the state management libraries that Daishi built. So basically, in terms of re-rendering and optimizing renders, they're all just perfect. So the first thing I would use as a state management library, it would be Jotai, because the advanced usage I would use it for applications that are heavy stateful. What do they call it? Or their state just changes so many times. I would use Jotai for that. Or the one of the things that powers the Jotai is the integrations around it. Like when I started contributing to Jotai, I just started contributing with just an email integration. Like after a few months, we've seen so many integrations in the repo that people loved building things on top of Jotai. And at some point, we just decided, oh man, we cannot just add integrations to our own repo and take the responsibility. So they actually decided to create another organization called the Jotai JS or Jotai Labs that has so many integrations around Jotai. That Jotai 10 stack query, which is an integration around 10 stack query or the previous React query. We have, I don't know, Jotai URQL, which is the URQL tool around GraphQL, which is we have the Jotai Apollo, which I just built, and all of these like phenomenal tools, and and it just powers Jotai. So there are so many things in the Jotai JS. So I just recommend people to check that out and see what they need if it's there. Or I also encourage them to build on top of Jotai because of the separation between like writable atoms, readable atoms, and the magic that you can do with those like terminologies is just so much. You can build like pretty much anything around Jotai.
Gotcha. That is interesting. Um, okay. And do you have, Mohammed, do you have anything else that you would like to mention about Jotai before we start wrapping up and talk about some of the other projects we've been working on?
Yeah. So here's the thing about Jotai. It's a state management library that I would use for every React JS project I build, or soon to be. Maybe I use it for every project because now we have the vanilla export, which just like provide like abstractions and APIs to use Jotai with any other library. And I'm really excited to see what people are going to build around that API. I also recommend people to check other state management libraries by Daishi, like Zostand and Balshu. Load everything I just said is just my like viewpoint, like my point of view, and it's not something that represents the team, as I said. So take it easy.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. Um, let's let me dissect just a little bit on the last thing that you said. So you mentioned the ability of other library authors to build on top of Jotai.
Yeah.
Can you give me a bit more about that? Like what is the go with this, and what do you hope people are gonna build on top of Jotai?
Yeah. So right now, with the vanilla export, is Jotai now provides the atomic way, the atomic design that it had for React JS, but it exports it in a way so you can use it as a state management library, not only React JS state management library, but a state management library with subscription features, with a subscription feature that you can subscribe to value changes and state changes in a way that is usable with any other library. That basically usable in JavaScript, like in JavaScript itself. So you can, I don't know, you can even use it in backend if that's possible. I don't know. But the thing I'm excited about, and as far as I know, I just saw it before, like a few months ago, is that someone just built a solid integration around Jotai. So that was pretty exciting to me because if we if we provide those abstractions, then maybe at some point we can have Jotai as the state management library for any JavaScript framework or any project that needs tracking state changes or state management related things. So that's the thing I'm excited about. The building block that in the second version that Jotai provides.
That is indeed pretty cool. Yeah, I would be very like hyped if somebody used the library that I worked on to build other frameworks on top of it. So yeah, definitely pretty cool.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a pretty cool thing. Like if you, I one of the things that motivates me about development and programming in general is just you provide a building block for another one to build on top of that, and seeing that cool stuff being built is just so it's a good feeling, to be honest, and I'm kind of proud of that, to be along Daishi and the Jotai team uh, in that journey. I'm not an active contributor anymore, though I'm a member of the team. But I learned so much from the team, from Daishi and from like other members. So yeah, I'm pretty excited and I'm pretty proud about that.
Definitely. Nice, nice. So let's do a round of promos before we wrap things up. So Mohammed, generally this is a place where we just shamelessly plug the things that we're working on and that we want to bring more publicity to them. So, for
Yeah.
example, I'm just gonna pick Envoyed, which is a company that we were just mentioning at the beginning of the show. So they provide remote design and software development services, which is not the new. A lot of companies do that, but they have a task-based billing system that allows their clients to only pay after the tasks are delivered and approved, which is a level of risk for them that most companies would never dare to try out. And it really gives a ton of security to the client because they know that things are going to be delivered on budget and they're going to be delivered on the quality that they expect because it needs to be approved before Envoy gets paid. So my promo today is just going to be Envoyed. So Mohammed, what do you have in mind that you would like to promote? Perhaps some of your own content or projects that you're working on?
Yeah, sure. I love that part of the podcast because I always want to like shamelessly plug my own tools and the things I work on. So the first thing I've been contributing to Million JS, I don't think it needs any more publicity because it's already famous. So that one, like I'd like to like recommend people to check it out. Second, I'm working with Daishi also on Waku, which is the minimal RSC implementation, React Server Components implementation. That's just the a new thing that I'm really excited about, and I want to see where it goes. So we're also working on that. So check it out on waku.gg and see the beautiful website the Candy Code team built around it. So I guess that's it. So oh, also I just wanted to say follow my own Twitter also. That's the most shameless thing I wanted to mention.
Definitely. Can you send the link to your Twitter? I'm gonna send in the comment section too. But yeah, so in the meantime, how about you, Peter?
Okay, nothing much really. So I actually wrote about Jotai before. I think that's what I'll probably share on the chat. So because I've kind of used it, yeah, most of the time. So I just wrote something about it. Yeah, I think I'll just share that. I think that's just that from my end. Yeah.
All right. And how about you, Chris?
I am again going to post my code video project. I don't know if I have any stars or any signups, but I don't really care. That's okay. It's in super beta, but I'm excited to see where it goes. Basically, it should be or will be a framework where you can partially automate or even completely automate your software course creation. And maybe eventually someday, maybe any video, any sort of tutorial video that you need to record. So I invite everyone to check it out.
I'd be
Awesome. Awesome.
I'd be sure to use that tool because I'm also interested in like with the courses and things like that to teach people about my own learnings. Not that I know that much because I don't know nothing, but I, I'm interested in sharing what I currently know to other people. So that tool is pretty amazing. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, thanks.
By the way, for anyone who is interested in that project from Chris, you should definitely check out our latest episode, the one previous to this one, because we talked a lot about that, especially at the end of the show, because coincidentally, the guest in the previous episode was also building something similar. So we ended up talking a lot about this. So if you're interested, be sure to check out the previous episode. All right.
Yeah, sure.
Um, Everyone, thank you so much. Mohammed, thank you. You just said before that this was your first podcast. I hope this has been a pleasurable experience. It definitely was for us. I think you were a very easy, um, easy guest in the sense that you definitely dominate the knowledge and you were able to transmit that in a very easy to understand and digestible way. So I congratulate you for your didactics. It was really, really good. And yeah, everyone, thank you so much. And
Thank you
I'll
so
see you
much. Thank
guys in
you.
the next one.
Yeah.
I appreciate you all. Thank you so much, folks, for for the huge opportunity. It's just my first time, so thank you.
All right. Awesome. Will be a pleasure to have you more often, Mohammed. Thank you, everyone. I'll see you in the next one.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.